Hello everyone, Battlebots Explained here, and welcome to this little special I'm doing. Just the other day, this was released, the upcoming next to Bounty Hunter episode brackets on Discovery Plus. We have Beta and Tombstone, and if you guys are for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Bounty Hunter format, basically what happens is you have a small tournament like this of 8 robots. And they compete, and the winner of this mini bracket gets to fight a legend. The previous two Bounty Hunter episodes, you had the target of Bronco and the target of Ice Wave, and for these next two, which is coming up on February 11th, we have Tombstone and Beta that are going to be the targets. Now, what I'm going to do in this episode, guys, is I'm just going to give my predictions, my overall thoughts on it, and I'm just going to talk about that a little bit. If you guys enjoy this video, please leave a like, also consider subscribing, and we're going to get into this. So, I do not know which episode is going to come first. Chances are they're happening around the same time, but I'm just going to go ahead and do betas first. So, looking at the bots that we have here, okay, first of all, I want to say this. I believe that the Bounty Hunter episodes were filmed after the main season. At least that's what I understand. If I'm wrong about that, guys, go ahead and correct me in the comments or in the live chat. Go ahead. And I'm not sure if this is going to be premiere or not, so yeah, if there is a live chat, then just go ahead and correct me, and if there's not a live chat, then just correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But I do believe, though, that the Bounty Hunter episodes were filmed after the main season. So looking at this bracket right now, okay, so first of all, if you watch the trailers for BattleBots Season 5, you will get so much spoiled for you if you actually take a look at the bracket itself. If not the bracket, sorry. If you look at the trailers and the fights there, and the configurations they're in. For example, in the trailer for this exact Beta Bounty Hunters one, um, I'll tell you one thing that instantly tells me something about this bracket here. Beta does not have its anti-spinner wedge in that promo. He has this other configuration, which I've never seen for Beta. It's more of a flat armor panel on the front, and it's not this angled wedge. If I can find a picture of it, I'll put it around this point in editing. I don't know if I'll be able to find a picture of it though, so. You guys will just have to watch the promo yourself, or trust me if you don't, if I can't find it. But Beta is not using this configuration there, and if that picture of Beta with this other configuration, with this non-horizontal spinner configuration is true, and that it happened in the Bounty Hunters episode, what that means is Beta does not fight a horizontal spinner at the end of this. Which tells me a few things. Number one, I don't think any horizontal spinner here makes it to fight Beta. Now again, guys, there's a possibility that Beta used that configuration in the main season, which is certainly possible, but my guess is that if it was of the Bounty Hunter episode, then Beta does not fight a horizontal spinner. Let's go over the fights, though. So Lockjaw versus Axe Backwards. I don't even need to go into very much detail at all about why Lockjaw would win this. Axe Backwards, huge exposed wheels, not the best driver in the world, not the best weapon in the world, not the best design in the world. Axe Backwards is dead. So Lockjaw is going to move forward, and I don't see any way that Axe Backwards wins that fight. Rampage versus Fusion is a different story, though. Now, we have not seen Rampage fight in this season. They're probably going to release its fights as like the BattleBots basement fights or the bonus fights, something like that. But in the main series so far, Season 5, we have not seen Rampage fight in any of the episodes that are currently available. So, I don't have much to go off on as far as what Rampage is capable of. I know it's a two-wheel drive, Bite Force style bot with 4 forks in front and a vertical spinner. For them not to show it on TV, though, it either its wins or losses were not very impressive or just not very entertaining, so that's what I'm guessing, and I was kind of hoping the Rampage would be able to do something this season, but we haven't seen it so far. And they're going up against Fusion, a bot that had a very, very tough first fight and then managed to bounce back with in my opinion, a couple of gimme fights from Battlebots. The people who were organizing who would fight who, they basically gift-wrapped Fusion 2 fights, one against Aegis and one against a War Easy, or Warez, however you want to pronounce it. Because neither of them could really touch Fusion. In Warez's case, he had a terrible driver, which I'll probably do a rant video on later on. And for Aegis, it's a Kevlar-covered bot. I don't really have to say much more there. But still, though, Fusion didn't have some amazing hits, though, especially against the Warez bot. There was a colossal hit there. And so, because I don't know much about Rampage, here's the thing. If Rampage has a wedge configuration, then they will be able to, in theory, take a lot of hits from Fusion, but I don't know how durable they really are. And so, not knowing anything about Rampage and not having much to go off of, I'm going to say Fusion wins this. Because, for one thing, Rampage is a new bot, and I don't know how well it's going to do, and especially if they don't have a wedge, I think they're toast. So, for right now, I'm going to predict Fusion wins this fight. And now let's go over to Aegis and Bloodsport. I don't even think I have to explain why Aegis is toast. If you saw the Fusion fight, they were dead after only a few love taps from Fusion, and so I am convinced that Bloodsport's going to wipe the floor with them, and there's going to be Kevlar sprinkles all over the arena. And, yeah, I personally think the Bloodsport's going to wipe the floor with Aegis. Then we have Slamo and Hijinks. Now, as much as I do... Okay, so I do like Slamo, and Hijinks kind of grew on me over time. But I just don't see Hijinks breaking Slamo, considering that Craig Danby is most likely going to go with his anti-spinner wedge for this fight. I just don't see Hijinks lasting that long, because remember, Claw Viper was able to beat them with a wedge, and Slamo has a much bigger, sturdier wedge than Hijinks does, so I just don't see Hijinks beating Slamo. I say Slamo moves forward. Now we're in the semifinals of this, so we have, at least in my opinion, we would have Lockjaw and Fusion. If that were to happen, Lockjaw does have the anti-spinner plow, and it would be really interesting to see how this fight would go. Because remember, Donald Hudson lost against Captain Shredderator, which I did a analysis video on. You guys probably haven't seen that yet. I haven't posted it yet, but I will sometime in the future. And Shredderator did break that plow. However, I do believe Donald Hudson has other anti-horizontal spinner plows, and more than likely he's going to go with one of those spares. And honestly, I think Fusion's going to kill itself, especially if he goes in with a horizontal against Lockjaw's plow. Fusion is very dead. There's gonna be a huge hit. Fusion's going to disable its own weapons with the impact, fly itself through the air, break all the laws of physics, invent new laws of physics, and Lockjaw's gonna win that fight, I think. Then again, if Fusion gets one clip on the wheel, that's the thing about Lockjaw's wheels, though. They really don't come off very often. And so, this is going to be a tough one. I'm going to say Lockjaw wins if those two fight, and then Lockjaw moves on to the little finals here, I guess you could call it. And, yeah, I'm just going to say Lockjaw wins that. And it could go either way, but I think Lockjaw has a much greater chance of winning that fight. Then we have, at least in my theory, Bloodsport versus Slamo. Now, this is going to be interesting, because obviously Slamo's going to go with their anti-horizontal configuration. What I think is interesting, though, is the Bloodsport team. They're really good at timing their weapon. In other words, they will get up to full speed, hit the opponent, and then they'll cool their weapon off after a certain amount of time. They're really good at conserving their weapon and keeping it spinning when they need to. Take the endgame fight, for example, Bloodsport versus Endgame. As far as them fighting Slamo, though, it is a difficult fight, though, because you do have a horizontal spinner versus a big sturdy wedge. And so, as much as I really like Bloodsport, and as much as I want them to actually, either them or Uppercut, to win the whole season, the Season 5 championship, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat Slamo. There's a good chance that Slamo could just break down or something like that, but I personally think the Bloodsport is going to lose, and I don't want to say that, but I think Bloodsport will lose to Slamo. It's going to be a tough fight, though, so I say Slamo wins, gets into the finals with Donald Hudson and Lockjaw. If this happens, guys, Lockjaw is going to wipe the floor with Slamo. Donald Hudson is a much better driver than Craig Danby, and he is just going to run circles around him. And while Craig Danby may get a good lift here and there, I just think that Lockjaw is going to beat Slamo to a pulp and then go up against Beta. And then that's going to be an interesting fight if Lockjaw fights Beta, or really anybody fights Beta, because as you guys know, John Reed has not been firing the hammer lately. He fired it a grand total of 2 times against Rusty so far that we have seen this season. And Rusty is, here's the thing though. I know that Rusty's pretty popular now, and he started to grow on me as well, but beating Rusty is not that big of an accomplishment, John Reed, and so, I really do think that you should fire the hammer more. Of course, I'm not saying fire the hammer directly into a spinner. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you should be a little bit more trigger happy with the hammer, I think, because you're so careful about firing the hammer, and you wait so long for a good hit that in the case of, say, Rotator versus Beta, you never got that hit. And if Beta fights, say, Lockjaw, John Reed has so much more of a chance to hit anything besides the spinner on Lockjaw than he did, say, on Rotator or on any spinner, really. Because vertical spinners, there's much less space taken up by the vertical spinner than, say, a horizontal spinner is. And so, I simply think that Beta is going to land more hits on Lockjaw, and this is kind of a 50-50 for me, I think, with Lockjaw versus Beta. Because both of them have phenomenal drivers. And what I think is, here's what I think, guys. If John Reed actually drives very well in the fight and will use the hammer, I think he could knock out Lockjaw. But at the same time, though, if he does not use the hammer as he did in the Rotator fight, he is going to lose and lose badly in this fight. Because like I said, if John Reed goes with the alternate flat-plated configuration that I mentioned before, instead of this wedge, even with the wedge, Lockjaw's going to get under it, but still, if he goes with the flat-plated wedge armor, Lockjaw's going to get under anything that Beta has. So the only thing that Beta can really do is fire the hammer crazy against Lockjaw and hope that something breaks, which I think it will if he manages to hit him hard enough times. So I think that's a 50-50 fight, guys, but depending on what John Reed does, I think John Reed is going to, his driving and his, whether or not he decides to fire the hammer or not, is going to decide this fight. And because if he chooses not to fire the hammer, Lockjaw's going to wipe the floor with him. If he does fire the hammer, he might kill Lockjaw. So I say mostly 50-50, but depends entirely on whether or not John Reed will fire the hammer. Which, as I said before, guys, if the Bounty Hunters episode was filmed after the main season, which I believe it was, John Reed has no real reason to keep his bot in pristine condition for the rest of the tournament, because there isn't a rest of the tournament. If this is, say, the last bit that Beta is going to have in Season 5, then he might just start firing the hammer willy-nilly. And so, I think that maybe that has something to do with why I think that Beta could win this fight, but again, it's kind of 50-50 for me. Also, why exactly would John Reed go with a flat-paneled armor instead of the wedge? Maybe he lost the wedge later on in the season? There's another thing I want to talk about real quick about the Bounty Hunters episodes being spoilers if they were filmed after the main season. For example, Rotator versus Shredderator. I did not understand why Victor Soto decided to not use his anti-spinner wedge in that fight. And now we know because it got torn off against Valkyrie. Okay? Like I was saying, when teams make kind of questionable decisions in the Bounty Hunter episode, chances are it's because something happened in the main season. I see the Bounty Hunter episodes as being full of potential spoilers. So, guys, when you see this, because even if you don't have Discovery Plus, obviously about 10 people are going to upload it to YouTube anyway. So when you see these fights one way or another, pay attention to the configurations, pay attention to how the bots are acting, maybe what damage they've already taken, what configuration they're using, because that will tell you a lot about how well they did in the main tournament. So, end of the day, I think that Lockjaw versus Beta is going to be the final, and I say it depends entirely on John Reed actually firing the darn hammer. Enough about this one, let's go to the, oh goodness, the Bounty Hunter bracket that I think could either be really good or really bad. So first off, we have the target of Ray Billings and Tombstone. Now guys, they have not revealed the top 32 bracket as of the date of this recording. However, judging by Tombstone's performance so far this season, spoiler for those of you guys that haven't seen this season, Tombstone is 1-2 this season, and that one fight was kind of a gimme fight against Slapbox. So Ray Billings, I don't know if he's going to get in the main season. There's a chance he might, but I just don't really know if he's actually going to get in. So, if he does not get into the main season, guys, one thing I want to point out, Ray Billings goes, again, trailer, spoilers in the trailers, guys. Tombstone is using his blue bar in whatever fight this is, I believe. If he uses the blue bar, it means he is not going up against a vertical spinner. Plain and simple. Because if he's going up against a vertical spinner and Ray Billings decides to be smart about it, he will use the black S7 tool steel bar. Granted, against Endgame, he didn't do that, and he didn't decide to be very smart against Rotator either, but I'm saying that if he really wants to win a fight, he knows exactly what to do. And so, judging that Ray Billings is using the blue bar, at least in the trailers, if the trailers are accurate, for the Bounty Hunter episode, what that means is he's not going up against a vertical spinner. Which there is only one vertical spinner in this entire bracket, and it is a bot that has done extremely well this season for a bot on a budget, and it's Jackpot. Now, I really, really like Jackpot, guys. I want them to go very far in the main season. I don't know how well they actually did, but I just hope that Jackpot did well, though. And I simply don't know if Jackpot fights Tombstone because, again, Ray goes with the blue bar. Granted, it could mean also that Tombstone may have lost the black bar in the main season if he got into the top 32, but we're getting into big-time speculation territory here. Let's go through the fights one by one. So, Gruff versus Gemini. Here's the thing, guys. If you had shown me this fight any time besides now, I would have said Gruff would have won. Because, for one thing, they fought in 2019 in a Rumble, and Gruff beat the heck out of Gemini and Marvin, if I remember correctly. Now, the problem is, since then, Gruff has had some reliability issues. They've had a lot of damage they've taken against Whiplash. And I just don't know about Gruff. I believe they're going to still beat the heck out of Gemini. I don't see Gemini winning this fight, but if Gruff suddenly breaks down like he did against Extinguisher, that's gonna hurt. That's really, really gonna hurt. But in the natural, though, Gruff is gonna win this fight by a landslide. Then we have Deadlift versus Jackpot. This is going to be an interesting fight, guys, because we didn't see very much from Deadlift this whole season. We saw one fight from him against Ghost Raptor in the previous Bounty Hunters episode, and we also saw a clip of him versus Mammoth, and unfortunately Deadlift didn't do very well in that one either. Deadlift is a bot that I really wanted to do good this season as soon as I saw it. It's a low, well-armored lifter bot. It looks solid, as it looks like a brick, and as you guys may have seen in this fight with Ghost Raptor, it was extremely well driven. I feel really bad for Deadlift this season. I think if they had a better schedule, they could have really, really done a lot. But so far, I don't think they did that well this season, but it's one of those cases where it's like a record like Gruff, for example, where, sure, your record isn't that great, but you had amazing performances in those fights. And also, speaking of Gruff, Deadlift had a problem against Ghost Raptor, which, spoiler for if you didn't see the previous Bounty Hunter episode, Deadlift controlled the whole fight against Ghost Raptor, beat the heck out of it, and then spontaneously died. Same thing with Gruff. I feel so sorry for both of them. So, Deadlift versus Jackpot. It's going to come down to ground clearance, and contrary to this photo here, Jackpot has not used his forks except for one fight against Sub-Zero, in which Sub-Zero did get underneath Jackpot. So I do not see the Jackpot team using their forks because they haven't used their forks in any of their other fights so far. So knowing that Jackpot does not use their forks in this episode, chances are Deadlift is going to get under them. Now, one thing that the Deadlift team did some serious errors on in their Ghost Raptor fight is they lifted their lifter up trying to lift Ghost Raptor while the weapon was going. If the Deadlift team are smart in this fight, they will keep the lifter down as long as possible until Jackpot's weapon is either stopped or gets a big hit or is stopped. Then they can flip Jackpot over, and I don't know if Jackpot's self-riding arm is going to function properly. So far, we haven't even seen it tested, I don't think. So, this is going to be a tough fight, guys. Chances are Jackpot is going to land at least a few gigantic hits, and I'd say this is a 50-50, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Deadlift, though, because if they don't break down, they are going to, I think, control Jackpot around a lot, because for as powerful and awesome as much as I like Jackpot, they are slow. That has been a weakness of theirs this entire season so far, that they are unfortunately slow, and Deadlift is not. Deadlift is a good control bot, and as long as they don't spontaneously die or make a bad weapons maneuver by lifting their lifter into the way of the spinner of Jackpot, I don't think Jackpot's going to survive this fight. They could, but I'm just going to say Deadlift moves on. Then we have Kraken versus Claw Viper. Now, this is going to be an interesting one, guys. I believe in, again, one of the trailers, I think we saw Claw Viper lifting up Kraken and getting a suplex on them. I could be wrong, but this is going to be an interesting one. I don't really see Claw Viper winning this, though, and here's why. Reliability issues. Claw Viper has taken quite a bit of damage this season if you have watched the previous episodes, especially against Gigabyte. And not only that, but also Claw Viper has started to have driving issues and reliability issues, and it's a good bot in theory that has had issues. Kraken, on the other hand, you can't kill this thing. And it's also very, very well driven. And even though I think we saw Claw Viper get a good grapple on Kraken in one of the trailers, I believe, I don't see Kraken losing this fight. Kraken's, I think, is much better driven and is never going to die in the fight. I just don't see Claw Viper winning this, so I'm going to say that Kraken wins this fight, although it is going to be quite a tussle. Then we have Smee versus Mammoth, and what did I do to deserve seeing this fight? You guys may know that I'm not the biggest fan of either of these bots. Mammoth has really grown on me because it's this big, towering pipe frame that is shockingly durable for what it is, that is extremely well driven, and has really surprised me. Then we have Smee. Smee was actually a huge disappointment for me this season, because if you look at their photos and all their different things a long time ago, before the season started, when they were still building Smee, it was supposed to be a horizontal grabber bot with a bunch of little actuators in it. That didn't happen either because of time constraints, or the team simply could not figure out how to get that to work, because Smee instead has a bunch of springs in the wedge, and they don't even really permanently wrap around or mechanically wrap around their opponent. They just kind of swing and they just kind of flop around the opponent. And not to mention, Smee lost one of its discs against Pain Train spontaneously, and I just really was not that impressed with Smee this season. Not in performance or in driving, really, or especially in appearance, because Smee was going to be this sleek-looking blue and yellow bot, and instead it looks orange and dark blue, and it just kind of looks ugly to me. That's just me personally. So Smee versus Mammoth. For all I just said about Smee and Mammoth, there is no way that Mammoth is going to win this fight. They're not going to get underneath Smee, I don't think, not unless they have special forks to get under it. And even if they do get under Smee, Smee is invertible, and it's just such a long, awkward bot. This is going to be one confusing, strange, weird fight, guys. And this is just... I think Smee's going to win just because Mammoth can't get under him. He's just going to push him everywhere. But I just don't think this is going to be a very eventful fight, guys. I think this is going to be one boring fight, honestly. So that's why I think of this fight. I think Smee's going to win, but it's not going to be a great fight. Now let's go into the semifinals. So we have Gruff versus Deadlift, at least in my theory. So if Gruff and Deadlift fight, it's a battle of two very, very unlucky lifters that have had some serious reliability issues, sadly, this season, and also a ton of bad luck. Here's the thing, I would say this is almost a 50-50 fight, because it depends on who breaks down first. Both are well driven, both are well controlled, both are pretty durable, it's just their reliability is a problem. Let me tell you why I'm going to give this fight to Deadlift. I'm going to give it to Deadlift because it's lower than Gruff. If you've seen Gruff this past season so far, you'll know that They were originally pretty low to the ground against Hypershock. And then during their fight with Whiplash, their lifting forks and their wedge took some damage. And then against Extinguisher, they did not repair any of that damage to their forks. Their forks were still bent up, and Gruff's ground clearance was increased. It was much higher off the ground. Deadlift so far has been a pretty low bot that I have observed. And I don't see Gruff getting under Deadlift very easily. And as long as Deadlift keeps driving, I think they're going to outlast Gruff, perhaps. Again, it depends on who dies first, but I'm going to say that Deadlift wins this fight. It's honestly a 50-50, depends on who breaks down first. And I just want Deadlift to win, guys. I really, really want Deadlift to win. Deadlift and Gruff both. It's really hard to choose between them, but I'm going to go with Deadlift, though, just because it's going to get under Gruff, I think. Then we have on the other side, let's say we have Kraken and Smee. Again, guys, this is another nightmare fight that should never happen. Two bots that can't really cause that much damage to each other. Oh goodness, this is going to be a fight that... This is going to be... same thing with Mammoth, I think. Smee and Mammoth. This is going to be the snooze fest of the season, I think. Granted, I think Kraken could potentially get underneath Smee. Maybe from the sides, maybe from the front. Kraken definitely has a better driver than Smee, I think. But... I'm going to say Kraken wins this, but this is just a 50-50 thing. This is a really, really boring fight. I don't think it's going to be very eventful. For one thing, I think Kraken has much more drive power than Smee, so he's just going to push him all over the place. Even if Smee can get under Kraken, Kraken's going to have enough drive power to forcibly push Smee everywhere. So, I think Kraken's going to win this fight. It's going to be a boring fight. I'm not going to like it. It's just going to be sad. So, at least in theory, then we have the final of Deadlift versus Kraken. Now, if this fight happens, guys, I'll say both bots deserve to win. Both of them really do. Especially if Deadlift actually survives and turns out to be reliable against Gruff and Jackpot. Both bots deserve this fight. Deadlift because he actually proved to be durable and reliable. Kraken because he survived the boredom of Smee, in my opinion. This is going to be a tough fight, really, because both bots are apparently pretty low to the ground, especially with Kraken, we know. Both of them are pretty well controlled. This is a straight 50-50 for me. And I'm kind of leaning towards Kraken just because Kraken has never broken down and Deadlift has. However, if Deadlift does not break down, I think he will win this fight. I think he's better designed to control and lift Kraken, get him into the hazards. But again, it's a control fight. Control fights are always difficult to perfectly predict who's going to win. So 50-50 chance, really, but sorry, Deadlift. I want you to win this fight. I want you to fight Tombstone, honestly, and do well, but I'm going to have to go with Kraken, honestly. I don't really see Deadlift... Problem with Deadlift, again, reliability. If those issues come up, then Kraken's going to win, but again, 50-50. So because this is such a close fight, in my opinion, I'm going to give two possibilities for fighting Tombstone, Deadlift or Kraken. Kraken versus Tombstone. Ray Billings is going to have a field day. Let's just say that. Kraken does not have an anti-horizontal spinner wedge. They only have the one thin fork in the middle, which is durable, as we know from their fight with Sao. But there is no way possible, though, that Kraken will beat Tombstone. No way possible. Kraken's just going to get torn to shreds. And Ray Billings is going to have a amazing final match for this season. Let's say that Tombstone fights Deadlift. Again, if Deadlift proves to be reliable, they're going to be able to tank most of the hits from Ray Billings, I think. But again, their reliability issues could come up, or something like that. Tombstone could clip the side. So I think Tombstone wins either possibility here, honestly. I was actually personally really disappointed with the bracket for the Tombstone Bounty Hunter episode, because none of the bots here besides Gruff really can beat Tombstone, I think. The problem with Jackpot is the discs are sticking far out, he doesn't have a proper wedge, and it's going to be a powerful hit, and then I think Jackpot would be dead. As for Smee, I don't think it's got the durability. Mammoth certainly doesn't have the durability. Gemini, no way. Gruff, reliability problems. Claw Viper, reliability problems. Kraken doesn't have a proper wedge. There is no bot here that I think could really defeat Tombstone this season with their reliability issues. That's just my opinion, guys, on these. And actually, let's do the same thing for Beta. what did I say? So we have Lockjaw and Slamo that I predict are going to be in the final here. Lockjaw fights Beta, I already talked about that. Slamo versus Beta, though, that's going to be an interesting fight. Because John Reed would have no reason to hold back on the hammer blows then, because there is no spinning weapon in your way, John. You can just fire the hammer all day long, or as many hits as you have before your air tank runs out. And here's the thing, Lockjaw versus Beta, like I said, it depends on whether or not John Reed fires the hammer. Beta versus Slamo is a different story, because I think John Reed is going to have no reason to hold back on the hammer, and it's going to be a split decision, I think. That's going to be a really, really close fight, and I don't know who would win that. I legitimately don't. Lockjaw versus Beta, like I said, depends on whether or not John Reed fires the darn hammer. So that's going to be my opinion, guys, on both of these Bounty Hunter episode fights. I know this was a pretty long video, but I did have a lot to discuss. And again, I personally think that these do spoil certain different things. For example, like I said before, Rotator not using their anti-horizontal spinner wedge against Shredderator because they lost it. It was torn to shreds. So, depending on what configuration you guys see these bots in for both of these episodes, especially the ones that are confirmed to get in the main season. For example, you have Jackpot that's guaranteed to get in. You have Lockjaw that's gone in. Fusion probably got in. Slamo got in. Bloodsport got in. Probably Hijinks got in. Whatever configuration these bots have, that if they make any kind of questionable decisions, chances are it's because they don't have their other configuration or something else happened in the main season. So guys, those are my thoughts on both of these Bounty Hunter episodes. They're going to be interesting to watch regardless. They're streaming February 11th on Discovery Plus, and I guarantee you there are going to be about 20 people that post the fights online on YouTube or elsewhere, so you're probably going to be able to find all those fights on YouTube. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next video.